Okay, so now we are ready to build applications. So you could either look at the definition of the application type in common.display. It's like this. So it's a server, and then you can look at the definition of what a server is. Or you can look at this example application. So here I take a character as a state. So I'm going to just, when I call myself, I might change my state by changing this character, and that's going to be, in this case, the character to display in my application. And then gets given a width and a height, and I'm going to produce an application of that width and height. So what does it mean to be an application? Well, you need to be able to display yourself. So to be able to display, and you need to be able to react to events such as keyboard commands or interrupts or things like this. So the display in this case for these applications is going to be a matrix of characters on the screen. So in this case, I'm saying that, well, these characters are always going to be a green C, where C is this state character I have, on a black background. And then the display is also consisting of the cursor position. And here I'm always making the cursor position be the given width and height. So that's going to be the bottom right corner of the screen. Right. Okay, and then to react, then I get sent an event. So if the event here is a character, then I'm going to change my state to be this new character. So that means I'm going to display a different character in my window. And if it's any other key, then I'm just not going to do anything. So that's one kind of event. It could be a key press, or it could be a resize event, which is what happens if the user is changing the size of the window like this, right? And then in this case, what I'm doing is I'm changing my width and height to be the new width and height. And I have to prove that if you look at what React means, well, you have to be an appropriate response. And an appropriate response for a resize event is a proof that the width and height really has been updated. So we get some static guarantees. Okay, so that's what it means to be an application, and these are the things we're going to build in the rest of this now. But before we do that, we need to do a little bit more geometry. So we need to have the notion of a hole in some S. So this is like the maybe type, but for index things. We're saying that a holy S is either a hole or it's the stuff in the S. And then it's not so hard to see that if we can make a cutter for S, then we can also make a cutter for holy S. And using this, we can say that a background, that's many cuts of rect cut and S, but an overlay is the same thing where we can also have a hole in it. So the background is something solid. The overlay is something which can also have a hole we can look through, right? And then we can make a cutter for overlays quite easily with the things we've done already. And similarly, we can quite easily superimpose an overlay on another overlay. So we have one thing with some holes in it and another thing with some holes in it, then you should be able to see through the front holes to the, and maybe if they are over a back hole, you should see through that as well. Right? Or if you have an overlay, so that's a thing with a hole in it, then you should be able to put that on top of something solid and get something solid. And that sounds a little bit like the overlay function you did before. Right? And then in the final part of the exercise, we'll actually put this to use now. So first of all, we had this notion of an application. We can now change that to be a free floating application. So that's just a layer of an application as part of a bigger screen. So before we had the whole screen, but you could also imagine that it's just a little part of it. So that's an app layer. And to see how this works, I'm asking you first to rewrite the application I just showed you as an app layer. So you can just see what you're asked to do if you pattern match and see what you need to do to display it, etc. So it's a different kind of server, but before an application, see if we can find it somewhere. You see that an application was, the display of an application was the characters any position, but the display of an app layer is given by an overlay and the cursor position. So there can also be holes in this. So you can have a hole where you display some other window behind you. So you rewrite rect app as an app layer, and then we can turn an app layer into an application. So you'd already done most of this by writing backstop, etc. And then we can also make a window layer where if we have an app layer, then we can make it fill the whole screen, right? If you say where it should be. And then we can finally make two layers. If we have a front layer and a back layer, then we can combine them using superimpose. And the thing that then could be a little bit tricky is where to send the events, right? So if you get a keystroke or any kind of event, you should always send it to the front application. But the resize events, you might have to send to both of them, right? And if you've done this, then you should be able to run this final version of the program, which was the one I showed you at the very beginning of this session. So good luck and have fun. There's lots to do, so don't hesitate to reach out if anything is still unclear. But I would recommend to work through it step by step and not be overwhelmed. Good luck.